The state, by using the power to tax, destroys the independence and the self-reliance, converts free men into vassals. And when the executive power of government can use the money taken from the people to coerce the people, freedom is in its twilight hour. Now, some hint of the new kind of campaigning that we'll be faced with in future campaigns is already at hand. The calls came in to us the day before election that the property tax bills were in the post office, but the order had come down, don't deliver them till after Election Day. 500 calls an hour to the tax collector after they received the bills revealed why they didn't want them delivered. The men who called us and told us their Social Security checks had arrived on the Monday before that fateful Tuesday, containing a note from the President promising a raise in the months ahead. And then the widowers and the pensioners under the Veterans Administration called, protesting because their bills too or their checks had arrived with the same kind of a note. They too had been promised a raise. A newspaper item has some interesting things. A little item I read said that $1 million postage bill was assessed against the publisher of a national magazine. Back postage due. And then in September, that magazine came out and leveled an attack against Barry Goldwater and endorsed the present administration. And a few weeks later, early in October, the claim for $1 million postage was dropped. Now, I have not checked out these facts. I'm like Will Rogers. I only know what I read in the paper. And I'm sure there must be some logical explanation for this seeming fortuitous sequence of coincidences. But we have seen for the first time the usually nonpartisan cabinet that historically is kept clear of campaigns, actually campaigning this time, actively all over the land. Campaigning must be alerted and must be altered to match this new idea of an administration that is willing to use the full power of the government to perpetuate itself. Now, of course, we're already aware of one problem we have to face in future elections. The reports come in as they did 4 years ago, only more so now, of voting machines unlatched in Maryland. They were all locked up tight the night before. The Coleman pens in Orange County, precincts where there was no checkoff made of the people who were voting, machines in Arizona that were jammed with gum. That is, on the Republican lever, they were jammed. Perhaps there have been errors in our campaign strategy, but the people have heard an honest man say things that cannot be dismissed, and his ideas will return again and again to men and women who place honor high on the list of things we strive for. Errors there might have been, certainly mistakes in any campaign, but if there is to be criticism of those errors, let it not come from us. Let us remember Teddy Roosevelt's tribute to the man in the arena. He said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who knows the triumph of achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." So it's over and we lost. And our candidate was attacked as no man in political history has ever been in our living memory. Why? Because he did represent an idea that was deep in all of us, an idea that must be destroyed if we are to forget freedom. Perhaps we can find some clue to the reason for this campaign leveled against one man in the lonely, tragic figure of Whittaker Chambers. Here was a man who himself felt the sting and the bitterness This lonely man who'd been a communist all his life and who changed. And in telling the story of his change, he said that he was like watching his little baby daughter eat her breakfast in her high chair. And he said, my eye came to rest on the delicate convolutions of her ear, those intricate, perfect ears. And the thought passed through my mind, no, those ears were not, as the communists say, created by any chance coming together of atoms in nature. And he said, I didn't know it at the time, but God had laid his finger on my forehead. And he told his wife that he felt he would be leaving the side of the winners when he left communism. But he said, I would rather go down with the losers than continue to support something I now know to be so evil. And then once he had taken that stand and his course was known and the campaign was leveled against him, he wrote, when I took up my little sling and aimed at communism, I also hit at something else. What I hit was the force of that great socialist revolution which in the name of liberalism, spasmodically, incompletely, somewhat formlessly, but always in the same direction, has been inching its ice cap over the nation for 2 decades. I had no adequate idea of its extent, the depth of its penetration, or the fierce vindictiveness of its revolutionary temper. Well, we have felt already the fierce vindictiveness of that revolutionary temper. We can meet the challenge, know where we stand, because 26 million people stood up and were counted. They voted in their belief that government should be under God. They're a mighty force, those 26 million of us. Not only mighty in numbers, but mighty because we were dedicated. And all over this land, as you've been told, the calls are coming in. You can't get away from the telephone, any of us who've been near the campaign headquarters or even in our homes. And it's one message from every part of this country, not one disheartened voice. They've called us from Oklahoma, from Florida, from the far East Coast, from the Midwest, from Michigan, from just over in Arizona, and they say, we're here. We're still together. We want to know, don't we stay together? Don't we keep on working? Given their promises, and they've given us their ideas. They want a regular means of raising money, staying together so that we can continue without waiting till the next campaign, so that we can get to those friends of ours who perhaps temporarily were not with us, but who we know in our hearts really agree, and that we have much in common, that we can educate them and inform them so they'll know that we're on the same side, so that we can have television programs to speak of the issues in the years and the months ahead. Stay together at your local level. Keep those groups going. We'll be even more successful with the distribution of books now than we were in a campaign. Those people who felt challenged and wouldn't read perhaps what we handed them because it was under a label of Republican versus Democrat. Today, they can be appealed to now when there is no heat of a campaign. We can continue with that. We can continue to inform people as we have with our own conversation with groups. Duke Wayne's picture on the State Department is available for showing in meetings. It'll be easy to get the number and you can find out how to obtain a print. There are other films that can be used in an educational way. We can build our party back because we're not talking a third party. We're talking an auxiliary force that will build the party and back it on sound Republican principles. And we'll have no more. And once we have made those principles clear, once there is no mistake about where we stand and what our principles are, we'll have no more of those candidates who are pledged to the same socialist goals as the opposition and who seek our Republican support. not because they are opposed to the goals. They seek our support because they're going to take a little longer in arriving at those same goals, and that's supposed to be a pretense towards some kind of conservatism. Look in your own hearts, each one of you. Are you willing to agree that socialism is the inevitable wave of the future, as some people say? No. The Republican Party. Do we believe that the Republican Party must go with the tide, not out of conviction, but out of cowardice? No. That we should plead for votes on a basis of giving as much as the Democrats, if only the voters will entrust us with the high office and the power. Let's be a party of opposition. Opposition to a misguided Democratic Party. Opposition to a misguided Democratic Party at home, and opposition to all the evil abroad that threatens freedom and self-reliance and dignity in every land. Never has there been such an opportunity for service as such as we have today. I'm like Phil when he's told you, I'm enthused, and I believe that out of this has come a forging, and we can go on ahead. We can cringe in the shadow of a philosophy we detest but fear to challenge, or we can rise from this defeat and begin the second round of our struggle to restore the Republic. And let us remember, let us remember the words of one who swayed the issue when they were debating whether to sign a Declaration of Independence. And in that little locked hall, this one voice was raised and implored, remember, God has given America to be free. Thank you.